So tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Cherie tako ingoa, ko Puki Totara te monga, o Wainui o te tiriwa, ko Pari Era te awa o Watamata, whakahonare te kaurawa maki, e Indigenous iwi o Hoauru Tamaki Makaurau. So thank you. I am from West Auckland and we are different out west from south, but it's lovely to visit your land. So I'm just talking a little bit about WAPA 2020. That is the Waitakere Area Principals Association, and 2020 is a learning initiative that we started 8 years ago. In 2006 we had a fabulous Waitakere City Council and a group of secondary principals in Waitakere that had worked together on a schooling improvement project. The issue in our region was that we had 34% of our students leaving high school without NCEA level 2, and between 2000 and 2006 81% of the jobs advertised in our region required tertiary qualifications. So the dilemma was, if we have people in our community, if we want them to grow up in Waitakere, be able to work and live and stay, there was a bit of a mismatch. The secondary principals came to the primary principal and said, this is the data we have, this is what we're trying to work through, we need your help. At the same time, the Waitakere City Council had a vision for creating an education plan for the whole region. And as the formal education providers, our association felt that actually we need to take the lead on this because we are the formal education providers, this is our core business. And so a group of 7 principals got together and off we went. And WAPA 2020 is about the 5-year-olds that started in our schools in 2008. In 2020, there'll be 17 leaving high school. And we sincerely wanted to think that we were going to make a difference, and the work that we did collaboratively was going to be create a preferred future. So it's non-mandated, this network. Anyone who wanted to be in could. That's important. It was based on a network for learning theory of practice that was developed in the UK by Louise Stoll and David Crandall. And the thing about the UK and most countries in the world is they have far more experience than us in networking because they already have districts. They already are in mandated network groups. And so the work that Louise and her fellow researchers had done, they went to 1,500 districts in the Greater London area. They took the top performing districts and went in and said, well, what are you doing? Right, so this is quite a strong research base to base a network on. And the key thing about our network and any network, this is what I believe, if you get the moral purpose right, the rest will follow. So this is one of our core values, manaakitanga. We're about all of our kids and all of our schools, and every time I hear someone slagging off another school, I think, oh, that's us. And every time I hear a success story in the West, I think, oh, that's us. So that's how it works. We believe that at every level of the network, kids are great teachers. Teachers are great teachers, parents are great teachers. We are all great teachers, but we all need to be the learners as well. Just as Mary was talking about in her network and Shirley in hers. And the third one, mana motahaki, aim high and get there. Aim high, work hard and keep the vision strong for what it is you want. Okay, so we get to the infrastructure. So when we set up, we had this reference group, and as I said, that was 7 principals, and we also had a researcher who had done some of the data gathering for the Waitakere City Council. So Chris McLean has actually been like our glue go-to fabulous person that's still with the network. We had 4 strands of work. Leadership was really important because the research says you've got to start with the leaders. They are the biggest barrier if you can't get them moving. So you've got to get them moving. We had a student achievement strand, a community engagement strand, and more recently an e-learning strand. So then we had facilitators, sponsors, strategic partners that came in around the thing. We were very much supported by the Waitakere Principals Executive. The charitable trusts, we go to funding each year to pay for Chris to be a part-time coordinator, and the Auckland City Council, and of course we have the ministry out here on the left. The key thing, again going back to the literature, is that you have to know who's in your network, and so when schools are setting up a new networks, you have to learn about them. And the process that the Network for Learning simulation takes us through is understanding types of schools we have, the history of the schools, the demographics, they all matter, whatever network you're in, right? So this was at the end of 2014. These were the types of schools we had in our network. They're different sizes, they're different socio-economic groups. And again, this is some of the things that, one of the things that the ministry are not used to thinking about, you know, putting decile 2s and 10s together. And of course we're from 5 different parts of our region. So we're not geographically clustered in a way an IES definition would have you work. These are some students from my school, and these are Year 6 and Year 7 students, right, this year. This is the cohort that we started with 2008. This is the cohort that in 2017 we want to see graduating and having all the opportunity and choice in the world. So they're very, every year group's important, but this year group is particularly important for us as a network, because whatever happens with that group is evidence or not of how well we're going. There's been 3 phases of the network development. We started with a pilot. We spoke to people in York District, which is where Michael Fullen did a lot of his work before they scaled up work in Ontario. We spoke to them in 2008. Their number one piece of advice was do a pilot. Don't start too big. We had 16 schools. Phase 2, we went to 31 schools, and that was a ministry. The ministry had a group of schools they were doing a schooling initiative piece of work with for 2 years, and then they said, oh, you're okay now. So at the end of that 2 years, the ministry went out and those schools came across and joined WAPA 2020. And then in phase 3, well, we're in it now. Okay, so the structure's different now. We were thinking really hard about how this 3rd phase of the network, what needed to change. One of the key things was, instead of having a reference group of 7 for 31 schools, every principal has to be in the reference group. So we've actually stepped up the, I guess, the level of commitment we're asking for from the leaders. We've gone down to 3 strands of work, but e-learning's in all of them. And it's a flatter structure than perhaps it was. Already some of the principals are struggling a little because they're being expected to actually do more, attend more and contribute more. You know, everyone says, how do you know it's working? And I guess the vision is that you're going to grow capacity at 4 levels: the student level, the teacher level, the school level, and across the network. So these are just some of the things that we can say using other types of data, not using specific network evaluation tools designed for network. NCA level 2 results in the region are just 3% behind the national norm now, whereas in 2006 they were much worse, so something's happened there. We have a really well structured PLG program that involves quite a lot of emerging leaders, aspiring deputy principals, aspiring principals and experienced senior leaders. And we see people stepping up and out and getting principal jobs. So that's an indication. We've had 2 lots of longitudinal data that we've been collecting for a few years now. One is the NZCER Student Engagement Survey that goes from year 5 to year 10 across our schools, and the other data we've been gathering is the EASTL data in reading and maths that going from year 4 to year 10. And we have an amazing deputy principal of Massey High School who does advanced stats analysis for us, bless. And so from that we're really starting to mine cluster data as opposed to just seeing what the picture is and then still drilling down into our own school stuff. There's a cluster patterns that we're starting to see as well as our own stuff. And then the networking, we're now in a phase where we need to layer up the levels. We need teachers more connected with teachers, boards more connected with boards, students more connected with students. So the challenge in this next phase is to try and, I guess, get the webs stronger at all the levels. The leaders are pretty connected. We talk about different change cultures in our network, and some schools that we consider to be moving, some that are cruising, some that are struggling, sinking and wandering. And in actual fact, in any school, you can be moving in one area but still struggling in another. So it's complex when you actually unpack this in different areas across your school and then across your network. So this was my quite crass analysis of where I thought we were as a network at the end of last year, just looking overall. You know, you've got, and the struggling schools are those that really, they know where they want to go, they know what they've got to do, but they're still not doing the really hard yards, okay? And that was just another analysis, another way to kind of view where we might be as a network. And this sort of thing informs then what you might do at workshop days, right? Because you've got to hit what it is that, where schools are at. Yeah, okay. We also talk about quite a lot about knowing the learner. You know, I mean, it's right through all of our rhetoric now in anything we do, but one of the ways we get people to analyse their staff is in these different adopters, leaders, early majority, late majority and resistors. And again, that's complex because someone in your school who may be an innovator in one area will be a resistor somewhere else. So it doesn't, you know, it's complex. But again, when you view the cluster like this and put staff together, then you start talking about strategies and understanding ways that we can work to get everyone on board. But you know that change is something that some people come to quickly, others will come to after a while, and the resistors will come along eventually. That's how life is. In the best networks, the people are networked, and that's the goal. So these are the different ways that we are looking to network our place. So step 1, be networked in your own school, and that includes with the parents, and we particularly have an incredibly strong push on to enrol a family and to be the other family. But all of these other ways that you can network are being worked on. So in the network, going back to the research, these are the stages of development, and to me this is the 101 of change management and networks that I think the ministry don't understand, because the exploring phase generally takes a year. And you can try and you can pretend that you're going to get to the developing and deepening and embedding and sustaining things if you like, but actually, in reality, if you're coming together as a network, the first stage is really important, and it's where you do a lot of talk, more talk. Talk at your school, talk across your schools, talk with colleagues, because you're trying to figure out what your common purpose might be, what your common core values might be, how you might operate together. The other phases come, and they come as fast as hard as you want to work. And on the next slide are the last two phases. So the bedding down the sustainability place, you know, our goal is to have every school in our network working in this really strong, sustained place where they have capacity with student achievement, with teachers' quality of teaching, with the school as a community, as a strong learning community, and then you have the network that is strong. 13 of 31 schools last year had 4 to 5 year ERO reviews, and that wasn't the case 8 years ago. Okay, so something's happened. Okay, and this is the game board, the simulation that we use to induct new schools, and we revisit every year because it's a great, you play the simulation, and so here you've got 5 schools down the side, and one's moving and one's struggling and one, you know, they're all the different types. You've got 26 staff members and they're all those different adopter types, and the idea is you've got to get them across the 5 stages to sustainability. It takes about 3 hours to play the game, and each time. And the thing about it is there's no set strategy. You've got to choose each time who you're bringing into the room and what you're going to do next. And the process of doing this, because it's built on this really strong theory of effective networks, you kind of get a sense in your head of what you need to do strategically to actually be smart about how you move a network forward. This is some stuff we know. There are phases in change management that everyone is working through at every level. And if you understand that, you can then reflect on any network you're in about where you're up to in those phases. So you have to use evidence, you have to know that you're making a difference, but there's multiple ways of knowing what difference you're making, and not all of it is about student achievement. There are many different aspects of networking that make it a success. Strategic thinking matters. I did a workshop for some core facilitators about a month ago using the simulation, and the people who think they know the most are the worst at the game, because they take a while before they'll shift off what they think they know to try something else. And so all I can say is when you get the right strategies in the right place at the right time with the right people, things will move faster. And if you understand that, it saves angst. These are the things that come in and not muck things up, but these are the contextual things that you are constantly having to attend to because they will throw you off. Okay, so individual life things happen. Principals leave schools. Contextual influences, you know, they get a building project going on next to them, or they've got a falling roll. You know, things happen and they all impact, and so as a network you've got to be really mindful of all of these things. IES has had a huge impact on WAPA 2020. That the conversation and that's okay, and we know where it is, but it's very much part of a different looking phase 3. Okay, it's really just a summary of all the complexities of networking. Okay, so there's some other learning. I've had this opportunity to go for 6 months overseas and to be kind of immersed in looking at networks and what works and what doesn't. Anywhere you go where you've got systemic improvement, they have a 20-year plan. Everywhere you go. Singapore has it, Ontario has it, Alberta has it, and WAPA 2020 has it as well. Because we had a long-term vision, and because of that you're not swayed by short-term stuff. You're just riding it through because you're on that path. The moral purpose, the reason you come together is critical. If you're chasing money, it's not enough. And every initiative we've had in New Zealand in the last 20 years where people have got together following the money, as soon as the money disappeared, so did the network. So this is we're in a different environment now, and it's like if you're going to network, you need to have a really good reason, and it needs to be purposeful, and you need to stay committed to the purpose. And I'm not sure that people are thinking like that. Relationships matter, and that's principal relationships are quite key in the beginning, and it's again something that people at systems level sort of overlook, and you've got to attend to them. So as well as doing everything in your school, you've kind of also got to be attending to network relationships and making sure people in other places are okay, and making time for other people and network stuff. And that's using your time differently, prioritising differently. It's interesting. So the schools that are not in WAPA 2020 this year, I did a brief analysis of why they aren't there, and there's really good reasons. So some of them are ready to lead networks in the areas and want to. Some of them have a very specific focus that they want to follow and try and get a network going, like in digital medium or a special school or Pacifica, schools with Pacifica bilingual units. Some schools are really concerned that if they don't stay with the geographical group, they're going to be isolated, and if they're sitting on roles that are vulnerable, by being not in the local talk, they make themselves more vulnerable. There's schools that have overcommitted and they're trying to do 3 or 4 different networks. You know, they've got mutakara and they've got the bilingual work, and then they've got a digital group they're working with, and and then they're doing ministry contracts. So there's lots of people in that situation. There's too many networks, and then you've got a couple of people retiring, and they just say, actually, don't need it. This is my year to leave, so I'm just dropping off things I don't need. So that's a little bit a stage of a school, really. Okay, no te raro, nāku te raro, kia ora te tamaiti, and this is what it's all about. We work together to make it work for ours.